This theory of Fort Collins being cool enough to not need air conditioners, I think in like the 60s and 70s, definitely went out of style. So most homes in Fort Collins have air conditioning. But we were up at the cabin this weekend in Red Feather, and holy cow, it was hot and definitely was a scorcher of a weekend. And we had some crazy lightning storm last night. I mean, I don't get scared of lightning too often, but I will say my heart was beating, and I had to kind of play it cool because my wife is terrified of thunder, gets all nervous and scared, and so usually like lays on my chest, and I just had to like play it cool, like, oh, no big deal, pretty cool, we're good. But no, I mean, it felt like, do I need to go check in my backyard that like the trees are still there? It was lightning, boom. I mean, it was back to back. So definitely some summer thunder and lightning storms, high temperatures, but God thank for air conditioning. Now, this is live in Fort Collins, where we talk to you guys about things that have happened over the previous week, specifically like, hey, hot temperatures, lightning storms, city council review, things that are happening, developments under review, and this is live. So if you have any questions or want to know anything specifically, I will be here for about from 30 minutes to an hour. Generally doesn't go over an hour, but this would be a great time for you to ask questions. So if you're watching this live, feel free to ask real time. If you're watching this on a rerun, make a comment below, and I will try to get back to that answer as soon as possible. But let's jump right in. I love peaches, and actually I just got done eating an apple and a peach, but Palisade peaches are here in Fort Collins. I actually had a buddy from South Carolina ask me about, hey, where can we find them? And all of these peach stands are going to start popping up all over the place. And the Peach Festival coming up in, I think, September, you'll have an opportunity, but pretty much July, August, and September. That is the honey hole for peaches in northern Colorado. They're here a little early this year because I believe because of the temperatures have been a little bit higher than years past. But coming down from Palisade, kids eating peaches probably is not the best thing ever unless you cut them up, because they're just extremely juicy. One of my favorite times of the year. And it's super sad when October rolls around and they start to get a little grainy and you're just like, we're out of the season. So, take advantage of these next 3 months. I could eat 10 peaches a day, not even think twice about it. Let's see here. A friend of mine moved here from Boston. Actually, speaking of like air conditioners, they thought they could get through a full summer when they first moved here because they had a whole house fan, and they're like, you know what, we'll be good. And they were like, the next spring, they were like, no, we are absolutely purchasing an air conditioner. But he made a comment that I thought was kind of funny, that there are two types of people in Fort Collins. There are the Safeway people and the King Supers people. And right now there is a consolidation going on between Kroger and Albertsons. And there are going to be multiple Safeway stores probably getting rebranded. Albertsons owns Safeway. Kroger owns King Supers. And the Safeway stores, 4 in Fort Collins, I believe 3 in Loveland. 4 in Fort Collins and 3 in Loveland are going to be rebranded, I believe, with a smaller chain ownership type store. I myself don't go to Safeway too often, but a great little store like Golden Meadows, I think is one of the more underrated neighborhoods in Southeast Fort Collins because it is extremely walkable, bikeable. It's connected to the Power Trail. Cruz Elementary's in there. Safeway, along with now Original Pancake House, is there. And you're really pretty close to, you're on LeMay and Harmony. So I think Golden Meadows is one of the most underrated neighborhoods in all of Fort Collins, except for the fact that it has the worst cell service. I will say, if you have Verizon and live in Golden Meadows, it is a dead zone. when we walk homes with clients, sometimes, especially with like out-of-state folks that need a video tour or jump on a FaceTime call while we're doing a virtual tour, if it is in Golden Meadows and they are wanting to do a FaceTime call, it's impossible. So we absolutely jump to our Google Drive methodology of taking videos, uploading to Google Drive, and downloading them then for them to view privately. So, but Safeway is located in that Golden Meadows kind of area, off of Harmony and LeMay, but they will be changed over into I believe, a different brand sooner than later, it seems. One of the things that we're going to talk about today on our City Council work session review is three things. Well, Halligan Reservoir, water supply requirements and rates and utility fees, and then also our public transportation system, specifically focusing on the West Transit system for West Elizabeth. And it's a $100 million project, but we're going to have a BRT, bus rapid transit route along there. And so we're going to jump into there shortly, but we're receiving funding around City of Fort Collins received a $2.4 million grant. And this is to help improve accessibility and transit centers and covered bus stops. So I did just do that week of public transportation. That video is going to come out, I believe, in like 2 weeks. And it's going to discuss everything that, all about Fort Collins. But I actually thought that the bus stops, and most of them were covered. I think I only went to one that was uncovered. Disability Accessibility, ADA, Americans with Disability Act requirements, it seemed like it was actually pretty solid. But this $2.4 million grant will actually help make it even better. So along with the $100 million project will be along West Elizabeth, which is actually one of the most frequented bus routes in all of Fort Collins, even more so than the Max Transit system. And that project is coming in the next 4 to 6 years. So super exciting, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. Pter School District, we have talked in the past about there was consolidation efforts. 4 to 6 schools were considering closing, boundaries being redrawn. I mean, it was a big to-do in Fort Collins. In fact, we even had a client who asked us, like, we are not buying a house until June 11th, when the new boundaries and everything gets like that gets sorted. And ultimately, nothing happened. They said, you know what, we're going to put all of this on hold. This is we need more time. We need more ability to convey this information to the public and explore other options. One of which being an increased mill levy to increase our annual increase of revenue by $49 million. And what this means to you as a homeowner in Fort Collins would be $25 roughly per $100,000 of assessed value, appraised value. And for a $600,000 house, that looks like it's going to be about roughly $150 additional taxes per year. And I mean, this would have to go and be voted on. And I would be shocked if this passed. $150 extra a year when there is already an increase in property taxes because of the assessed value of homes. It's not coming at a right time. It seems a little high. I feel like they should do, I don't know, I think being in public office would be tough. And recently I was asked to join our HOA board or run for being on the HOA, and I said absolutely not. There's some contention there. The Thornton pipeline is being, and I think we'll talk about that here in a second. Save the Pter is suing Larimer County Commissioners, the city of Thornton, and then John Keflas, who's the Larimer County Commissioner, is explicitly personally named. And I think that's one thing that people don't fully understand when they get involved, especially in today's world. I mean, we live in a litigious world. Unfortunately, I'm not a huge fan of that. But that being said, when you sign up for these boards, especially like I've got, young people that, and I wish I was mentored about this and advised on this earlier in my career, but like, sure, it's a resume builder to be on a board, but it doesn't come with no liability. And when you make these decisions for, the Pter School District or the city of Fort Collins or, a company that you're a part of or a nonprofit, you are also kind of agreeing to the decisions that are being made from that board and have some liability. and so, I just definitely not the right time, I don't think, for this $25 per $100,000 evaluation to be sent in front of the public. But, you can look at it a lot of different ways. Maybe they did a $10 raise for every $100,000 to offset some of this budget, cut some of their items, maybe in tandem with one school closure. But it feels very much all or nothing. And because my understanding for this to raise $49 million annually, and maybe I need to check on this, these numbers, but gosh, man, I guess we could do that quick math. $150 per $60,000 of household. I think we have 60,000 households in Fort Collins. So let's just do this math real quick. 60,000 households times 150. Yeah, that's 9 million. So I don't know, that seems a little off, but regardless, I believe we have a $6 million annual shortfall in the budget. And so I want to check on some of that. But anyways, hopefully they're only raising it as much as we need for that budget shortfall. But then they're also looking on long-term plans like Beatty Elementary. It seems like it's been on the chopping block 2 different times. And whatever that annual budget is that we are considering and having school consolidation. But I know Beatty's like right in the middle of school, right in Meadowlark, one of the few elementaries in that area. So there's going to be no right answer, but I feel like there needs to be a little bit of give back for both. So I'd be super curious of your opinion if you're watching this. Should there be just a pure mill levy increase, keep all schools open, or maybe address both? Hey, let's keep as many schools open as we possibly can. Consider closing 1 or 2 that are, meet certain guidelines, or 1 now, 2 and 3 to 4 years, depending on how the population continues to evolve, where it moves, where young families move, all that good stuff. And then currently ask for, let's say, $10 per $100,000 evaluation, and kind of have a molding. And I'm sure maybe they're talking about all of this within borders, within their meetings, private meetings. But what I'm seeing is they're trying to make up the entire shortfall in one foul swoop, and it's either one or the other. And I think there could be a combination of the two. Speaking of which, Save the Pooter sues over the Thornton pipeline. They want to see a lot of they feel like there wasn't as good as communication that could have been. They felt like the Thornton was given a whole lot more time to speak versus their 3 minutes per person, and it was cut short. And it's the 10-mile pipeline that maybe isn't necessarily going to be in line with the northern water supply. What is it? Let's see here. And NISP. NISP. Northern Integrated Supply Project, NISP, which I believe is Glade Reservoir, and they want to see a co-location between these two so that there's not so many pipelines going in and out. But again, man, and there was an article about the Sanctuary on the Greens, the nonprofit that raised the lawsuit. Developing is tough, and I would say with the ability for people to gather much easier than it was even 10 years ago, whether it be through Facebook groups, social media, whatever. I mean, you can gain a lot of momentum with a small group of people that has a much broader reach now than before. And we'll talk about the Halligan Reservoir here shortly, because there's going to be some lawsuits about that, and City Council is talking about having a contingency with a law defense contingency budget. So people, I mean, city council they're talking about it. Developers are having to deal with it. I mean, talk about a difficult time sometimes to, conduct business. Now, Julie Pignataro did say something that I agree with, though, that, while 20 years seems like a long time, when it's going to be a project that's going to last for hundreds of years, maybe 20 years isn't as long as we really think it is versus the impacts that it could have for centuries. Now, maybe not 20 years, but maybe 12, 2, 5, 6. I don't know what the right time is. It just feels like 20 years is a long time. You're never going to have Goldilocks getting the porridge just right. You can get it as close as you possibly can, but then you got to kind of rip the Band-Aid off and go for it. I got a text message from a group of guys that we have coffee with every Tuesday, and they were saying that red light traffic cameras are coming into play. And we talked about this last week, and I mean, it is going to be a huge revenue generator for the city of Fort Collins, and they're going to be raising millions of dollars a year based off of the infractions. But basically, there was a law that passed in Colorado in 2023 that allowed red light cameras to now be used for speeding tickets, and the basically automated vehicle information system, AVIS, I believe is what it's the acronym, is now going to be able to have 6 intersections in Fort Collins that is going to give you a speeding ticket if you are going 11 or more miles per hour. So I was coming up to a red light today or yellow light, and I was like, all right, in this situation, maybe I would have pressed the gas to get through this yellow light because it was kind of borderline. But one, I could risk a red light ticket. So I either have to super go fast because I'm going to get a red light ticket, or not jam the brakes, but slow down, stop, and not get that 11 mile per hour over speeding ticket. And specifically, here's we talked about it last week. I don't have a screen to share this time, but I'm going to get my screen share here shortly. In the, there are some, let's see here. Oh, I don't have it right now. At Shields and Prospect, 16,000 vehicles per month on average are speeding of 11 miles per hour or over, and nearly 20,000 when you take into consideration all 6 red light cameras together and generate 11 mile per hour or more speeding. Now, the hope is Vision Zero. Vision Zero is a vision from Fort Collins of 0 fatalities or serious injuries by, I believe, like 2032 or 2030. Anyways, it's a timeline that says, hey, we want to have 0 fatalities and 0 serious injuries within Fort Collins proper. And one of the ways a lot of these serious fatalities, serious injuries and fatalities happen is through speeding. And so there's going to now here, I believe it's October, when they actually go live with the 2 AVIS systems in addition to the red light cameras. And I'm sure they're going to add more red light cameras. I mean, Fort Collins, here soon enough, you're just not going to be able to go 11 miles per hour or more within the community above the above the speed limit, which, I mean, honestly, probably a good thing. So, I mean, I think I'm not going to fuss about it. It is what it is. Okay. City Council work session. They looked at 3 different things: the Halligan Reservoir, water storage, water impact fees and rates, and then the Transport West Elizabeth. I'm going to share my screen because I think there's a lot of just really fun, good information out there. So let me do that. All right, let's go. This is, let's see if we can do view full screen. There we go. That looks a little bit better. So this is the Fort Collins water system. So we've got the Michigan Ditch, Cache-La-Poudre, Joe Wright Reservoir, Halligan Reservoir, which is kind of our big one. And then we have our Colorado Big Thompson project that goes through the Horsetooth Reservoir. So these are our water supplier, water storage sheds. And this is Fort Collins down here, the Pter River coming right along the city. And then, of course, the Horsetooth Reservoir. And what they're proposing is to increase the size of the Halligan Dam. And I think also they're going to extend it by about 200 feet, but really not too much, just increase the height of the dam because it's a very deep, very, very, very deep reservoir. I don't know how deep it is, but I think it's very, very deep. Anyways, the cost of the project, $300 million. Originally, it was interesting because they were talking about how there was partners in this project, the Halligan Reservoir project, where there was like the city of Greeley and other water districts that were going to be sharing in the cost, and City of Fort Collins cost was only going to be $30 million. But between time and then a lot of the partners removing themselves in 08 and 09, it's basically City of Fort Collins' project right now. And the cost of that is now $300 million. And this dam, the Halligan Reservoir Dam, was built in 1909. And I was just like thinking to myself, I'm like, maybe this is like age or youth or something. I'm like, I mean, what were they even building with in 1909? You know, like shovels and dirt but I'm sure, you know, the technology was there. And but anyways, here is some information about the dam as it currently exists. It's a 78-foot high dam with two 34-inch outlet pipes that supplies 12,000 cubic feet per second. What they're proposing is 144 foot, so nearly doubling the height of the dam. And then also, what's interesting is they're only saying that the water levels are going to increase by 26 feet. So I wonder if so they're increased the height by double. The water height is only going to increase by 24. So the surface area that it's going to supply is going to probably increase pretty dramatically. So I'm curious why they have to double their height to only increase their height of surface of the water by 26 feet. But Army Corps of Engineers, engineers in general, way, way smarter than I am. So I'm sure they know exactly what they're talking about and doing. But it's going to be a pretty amazing, pretty amazing dam that they're going to be rebuilding. Now, Halligan Reservoir is not for recreation purposes because of the accessibility for that reservoir. So unfortunately, unlike the Glade Reservoir that's being built, Chimney Hollow that's being built, that are both going to be recreational and for use of the Larimer County citizens and Weld County. I mean, anybody. This reservoir is not. Let's see here, the timeline. It's crazy. I mean, they actually even, so this is 2006 is when they began this permitting process. Really, from my understanding, it actually started in the late 90s. So we're talking, by the time it is potentially operational of 2028 to 2029, which Jenny Arndt says, where in our budget right here, where in our budget is essentially the contingency for lawsuits and defending and going through that process? Because she goes, I'm pretty sure we're going to have to deal with that. And the engineers and those involved with the Halligan Reservoir said, yes, we do have that as a contingency factor, and we know that could be a possibility. So we are still 4 to 5 years out from this dam being built and rebuilt, I should say. But talk about just an extremely long timeline. It was super interesting to hear, these individuals talking about like councils of past. So a council member has a 4-year term. We're talking 20 years. So we're talking about potentially 5 different councils that were a part of this decision and making, these decisions. And at any time, council can kind of turn the course, but, so that's really a big risk. And like, that was one of the big things that council was talking about with the land use code, specifically the commercial 2.0, land use code 2.0, the commercial side of things. They're like, we want to get this through because who knows who the next council is. And they could basically, decimate all the work that's been done by saying, we don't agree. We want to stop. We want to pause, blah, blah, blah. So such a huge, long project, just as super difficult to see. Is it because one of the words that they kept using is like, I think this dam will take place. And I believe this will happen, which suggests that it could also not happen if there's enough fighting against it or things that don't happen on budgeting. But high level, for those of you that are watching, Fort Collins doesn't have a water issue. It has a water supply issue. We have very senior rights on our water shares of both Colorado Big Thompson, the Pter River. What we have is a problem of water storage, and what the Halligan Reservoir, Horsetooth Reservoir, I believe Glade Reservoir is all doing is setting us up to be drought resistant in those years. If they come with climate change and drought, we will be able to still supply water to our community and citizens. And let's see. Oh, I didn't include this slide, but I thought one thing that was super interesting was 150 gallons per day per capita in the city of Fort Collins. And I am a huge believer of technology and technology advances. And I believe one thing that will happen is that 150 gallons per day will decrease by way of reclaimed water and showers and toilets. You know, if it's yellow, let it mellow type stuff. But I'm not saying exactly that. But I'm just saying the technology of, they say that it takes 0.4 acre feet per house to be built based off of the historic usage of water in a house. So each, and I think that could decrease with technology of whether that be zero-scaping and or the water savings, water restrictors. With technology, I believe that 150 gallons per day per capita could decrease. Now that's just me talking completely out of turn. But I did read a good book. It was called Colorado Water for the Non-Attorney. And it was talking about how one drop of water touched 27 hands, basically, from the ice shed that it came from until it gets to, I believe, the ocean. And talks about, you know, hey, it goes through a high altitude ranch like Palisade Peaches, and then gets back into the water to where fishermen, you know, touch it. And then Pter, you know, the rafting, and then tubing, and then down below goes into our water system and then gets reclaimed. Anyways, my theory on that too is that we can get from 27 uses to 30 uses, 40 uses, just with the technology that is going to be coming out there, and with enough desire and lack of such a serious resource such as water. I think there'll be money and capital invested in that to be able to come up with those. I'm sure there's already companies, individuals, technology that's currently working on it. All right. Water fees and rates. In August of 2023, there was a work session, and even city council was misusing some of the numbers that were suggested in that work session. There was a consultant that came in that suggested that we need to increase our price per share that we are selling to developers from $68,000 to like $170,000. It was going to be triple the price for one share of water. And the way they were talking about this was a market-based approach that you have to sell what you can buy for because of the need of potentially buying future shares. So you have to get that and blah, 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 blah. Even though we have tons of historic shares, and we do need to buy at this time a year ago, we needed to buy 500 more shares of water to basically fulfill all of the development infill possibilities in Fort Collins now and into the future. And city council was like, whoa, no, we can't do that. Talk about just putting an absolute halt on development. So they came back, and in April of this year, they brought up 4 different proposals, kind of a hybrid of market, a hybrid of cost, and we'll get to those in a second. But essentially, these water supply requirement fee, like basically impact fees to developers for one share of water, is what allows developers to build, do infill. Each house needs 0.4 acres of water. But then there's also some, anyways, 1 acre foot of water, I believe actually can, from my understanding, can build actually 4 houses. but based off of 0.4 only says you could build 2.5 houses with that. Anyways, that share of water is what gets sold to the developers to then be able to develop a house. So it costs 0.4 times $68,000 to build one house for the water portion only. And you could guess if it went to $170,000, how much more expensive housing costs in an area where housing is already expensive. But it's a small portion of the fee of the development fees that goes towards rebuilding the dam, Glade Reservoir, these huge capital projects that keeps this system going. 95% of our basically this is what creates the majority of the water fund. So it's a very small portion, but it is an important portion specifically for the developers to be able to develop homes and sell them. Now, there's only a small portion of, I'll get to it here in a second because I think it's super interesting. This is not for the entire city of Fort Collins. This is just for the city of Fort Collins water utility, which covers 36,000 water taps or 32,000 customers. And here's kind of a breakdown of our water districts. There's Elko, East Larimer County Water District, Fort Collins Loveland Water District, which is what I'm a part of. So this doesn't even affect me. If I were a developer and I wanted to develop only in the Fort Collins Loveland Water District, these fees wouldn't affect me, although I would have to play by the Fort Collins Loveland Water District fees. Here is the City of Fort Collins Water District. And then we got West Fort Collins Water District. And then this tiny little thing that I've never even heard of is Sunset Water District. Anyways, this is what the orange is, what this new fee that they're proposing would impact. So here are the two options that they're considering: a hybrid cost approach or a hybrid market base. And it really felt like, based off of everything that the city council is saying, they're going to go off this cost-based approach, which is actually going to decrease the fee from $68,000 or so to $63,800. These fees are going to come into play about a year from now. Next October or so, they're going to go and they're going to do a lot of, this next year. This coming October is when they will vote on things, and these fees would go into place next year, 2025. All right. Moving right along to the West Elizabeth BRT system, bus rapid transit system. Here is something fun to look at. Okay, so this is City of Fort Collins Master Transit Plan orientation. So we've already got our Max Transit line. Here is the West Elizabeth Transit line that they're talking about building, which, if everything goes relatively smooth, they would hope to have it online by 2028, 2029. So we're still 4 to 5 years out from this. And then ultimately, they're going to want to have a one along Harmony Road as well, a bus rapid transit system, which comes every 30 minutes or better. Now, when I was doing the Max Transit, if I was on the Max Transit line, it was great. I could get to and from where I needed to go with relative certainty and confidence that I was going to be on time. If I got anywhere else outside of that, a lot of them are just on our timeline. So if I was going to miss my 1:30 bus, well, I might as well just stick around and make my workout a little bit longer, half hour, 45 minutes, because it's not going to be till 2:30 that the next one comes. But these regional mobility hubs, regional connections, innovation hubs, and then also local service, 30 minutes all day long. I mean, if we had this going on, Max Transit along Mason, as well as the Elizabeth Corridor and Harmony, I feel like there could be significant kind of transitioning to more public transportation that currently is there. Now, they are already suggesting that our ridership is increasing, and those are all good things. So again, be on the lookout for that video that's coming out here in a couple of weeks. I was very pleasantly surprised with our public transit system, but this is getting, even more so. Here is kind of the route that it would go. It's 3 miles from the Laurel Station. This is the Max Transit line. And they'd move along, going on West Elizabeth, all the way to the Foothills campus, just to the south, I believe, or north of the Equine Center. And then they would have a roundabout here. One thing that I think was super cool is they're going to have raised, protected bike lanes. We are a platinum rated bike community in Fort Collins, and it's things like this that are going to, continue emphasizing the safety and ability to ride your bike anywhere and everywhere in Fort Collins quickly, and also then again the transit system. Now, the half-cent 2050 sales tax that just took place in 2024, which half of that was going to go to Parks and Recreation, a quarter of it was going to go to environmental, climate-wise, type policies, and then a quarter of it's going to go to public transportation, which is going to help fund this. But it's amazing how much public grant and funding this project is looking to receive. Here is the rough cost of this project. Capital construction, $71 million. Right-of-way acquisition, basically real estate, $2 million. Vehicle infrastructure, electric buses is what they're wanting to have on this line. Design and construction, and then contingency. Need that contingency. And then an increase of $2 million per year for its annual operation. This is how we're going to fund it, with a potentially small starts grant. Now, we didn't get it this last time because of the way that we scored on their criteria, but we're working on getting a better score to be able to get some of this funding. Local match, we already have received this $10.7 million grant. And then CSU going to be committing $1 million for their Foothills campus. And so really a lot of this is coming from federal funds, state funding, grant funding, not necessarily from our pocketbooks as a city, but leveraging these funds available out there for better public transportation, better air quality, all that good stuff. There's so many things out there for climate projects that we are definitely looking at taking advantage of as a city. Here is what the roundabout would look like. Now, this is all backed up. So this is Elizabeth. So this actually runs east-west. This runs north-south. So I don't know why they did it this way. But your Foothills Transit Center, they're looking at building this sooner than later so that it can offset some of the scoring criteria of what they're looking at doing, so they can get the Smart Start $60 million of grant funding. So that is coming, hopefully from what they're saying, by 2028, 2029. Now, jumping into our final part of of our live in Fort Collins is what can you do this coming week? So there's a Wade the River, July 17th here in a couple of days, 9:30 to 12 p.m. You can go park, right? Lee Martinez Park. And there's going to be people that are going to be, walking you through about what's underneath the water and biology, the Pter River, which kind of also is the second idea of nature is where you can find it. July 19th, 9:30 to 11 a.m. at Lee Martinez Park. They're going to walk you along the Pter Trail, talk to you about butterflies, trees, and birds along the river corridor, including a scavenger hunt for young people. And so they're asking you also to bring your binoculars. It's about a 1 mile round trip. So go explore that. If you're new to the area or looking for something to do, if you're visiting, go explore that. Lee Martinez Park also is super fun. Lee Martinez Farm, you're not going to regret going there. New Belgium's having the ASL Social, which is on every third Thursday of the month. American Sign Language Social at the brewery. Starts place at 5 p.m. And that is all I've got as far as, Foco Fondo presented by Fat Tire, which a friend of mine did ask me to do this year, and I was like, no. You do have options of 12, 32, 53, or 118-mile gravel cycling adventure on July 21st. And I talked to my wife about how long a century ride would be if you were averaging 4.5 minutes. I mean, you're looking at like a 8 to 10 hour day if it's 118 miles. So it's $50 to $165 for adults. And I think I don't know if this is the inaugural year, but I believe it's one of the first years. So if you're into that kind of thing, July 21st, definitely probably got to register. So get on to that and get rocking and rolling. So we're coming to the end of our live, and appreciate you guys joining me today. If you guys have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out. This is Live in Fort Collins every Monday at noon, and we will see you guys next week. Now, tomorrow we are releasing Fort Collins hot takes from Reddit and my responses to it. So if you're looking for a fun video, that comes out tomorrow morning. Have a great day. Take care.